Hello everybody and welcome. Today we're going to talk about the Analogue Pocket again. And now I have a little bit more information about my experience, like personal experience. And this video is going to be about what I think are definitely the upgrades that you're gonna get if you upgrade even from your modded Game Boy Advance. These are some things that can be different depends on what kind of modifications you have already done to your Game Boy Advance. And to my Game Boy Advance, what I have mostly done is only just some basic thing like the screen, and I haven't really done anything else. But I'm going to try to keep it organized in a way that even people that have only the original hardware can understand what kind of upgrades you're getting with such a device. So without further ado, let's start. So the first thing, of course, is the screen. I mean, it's the biggest selling point of this thing, the screen. It's gorgeous, it's really high quality, it is also really high reflective because I have put also the screen protector on top. And overall, it feels fantastic to view. It's not all pros, by the way. There are some cons as well, but I'm gonna focus first on the pros, and then we're gonna see at the end the cons, if you are concerned about that. So, we are starting with the screen, as I said, and the screen is really beautiful. If you have played in emulators and other kind of stuff, when you play on this device, it cannot really compare because this screen is really high resolution and it's like 10 times outputting the upscaling, so every pixel feels like really good when you see it. You also have the options to put the LCD filters like you will do, like the shader kind of thing that you will have on emulation, and it works the same way. It looks really beautiful if you want to look at it as the Game Boy Advance SP, which you can experience as well if you use the filter that they have on the Nintendo Switch, which is a really good filter as well. And I think I prefer the Switch one over this as filters, but as screen this is way more detailed. What do you see on that? Another thing which is huge, and it's something that have been updated even for the Open FPGA course, not just for your physical games, is the sleep and wake up function. So when I press this button here, it just goes to sleep immediately. Goes to sleep, and when you press it again, says wake up, wake, then loads up for a little bit, and then you're back in the game. And that is a fantastic feature. I think this is the biggest seller if you have a normal GBA and you are always in this situation that you want to pause for a little bit, you don't want to waste battery if you have to do something immediately or talk to a call, and you cannot really do that with the normal Game Boy Advance. If you have the SP, you can in some games use the suspend kind of feature, but it's not the same on the normal Game Boy Advance. Everything that I'm gonna talk about is about the Game Boy Advance, the first edition, not the SP. So another thing that like having from the sleep and wake up function is that you can control really how much you use it, and you can control the battery way better. USB-C charging is a huge thing. Thank God we have it, and there is no proprietary charging situation. It is really good, and I love it. Like, you can just put it in. I think it took me for around an hour from 20% to go around 90%, so that was really good. It charges quite fast, but you will have to have the fast chargers and stuff like that. PD chargers, I forgot the name conventions. There's so many charging technologies these days. Another thing that you will like be pleased to know about is that you can, if you want in some games, you don't have to use these L and R buttons, which are not the best, especially if you're using a card here. It's not the most comfortable thing to do when you're having a card as well and you have big hands. But you can remap the buttons to be these two to be the L and R. In some games, this is really good. I found when I was playing Castlevania Area of Sorrow, this was really good and it was helping me do some nice techniques that you can do with the backdash. But I cannot say that this is my first choice. I would prefer to just have better back buttons, but the remapping option is welcome. Because in some other games, for example, like when I was playing Metroid, this was not really helpful because when you're running and you're shooting, it is not the best. For Metroid at least, you cannot really just feel very comfortable doing it, and especially if you have already built the muscle memory to use the back buttons, it is not a good alternative. But for many other games that don't really care about that, it is completely fine. Another fantastic thing, and there is a point here for the collectors as well, is that you can find a way that you can make a save state in your original cartridge, and then you can use the save state in your ROM. So you don't have like to keep using, or like if you're going outside or outside of your house and you don't want to use a very expensive collector's cartridge that you have. Now I know this is a very specific point for collectors. If you have a collection and you're afraid to devalue it or whatever, this is not something that I do, because I won't buy a very expensive cartridge. I will prefer to just get a reproduction. So if you have that and you want to continue the save that you have from here, you can transfer it and you can use it with the ROM file from here, and you can have your complete save with no problems transferred over to your ROM, so you won't have any issues of like, oh, I want to travel, I want to get this with me, but I don't want to have with me $300 of games and maybe something happens to them. So I understand some people really respect their stuff and they put value on them if they are valuable. So this kind of thing may be something that you would need to know. Another thing is obviously that this was mostly catered for the aspect ratio for the Game Boy Color. And when I was playing on the Game Boy Advance and I was using my flash card, my Easy Flash, because I don't like having a huge thing popping out on the back, so I didn't want to use the crystal cartridge like this. And even when I was using it, the bezels and the aspect ratio that you will get on your Game Boy Advance was tiny. It was like a Game Boy Micro. So I definitely prefer that you can have in full aspect ratio here the Game Boy Color games as well, because we are talking here the differences from a Game Boy Advance, the first edition, compared to this, and the Game Boy Advance is backwards compatible with the Game Boy Color, so you will need to know that this one, the aspect ratio is even better for the Game Boy Color. Something that a lot of people may think, now we are going to talk about a little bit like cons and things that may seem like a con, but it's not really. Another thing before I go to that is that it's also very high quality on the audio. Like compared to what you had before on the Game Boy Advance, it's not comparable at all. And even though they're side speakers, they're not like in your face, they're still really good and they can get really loud if you want. This is one good thing with this device. It can get loud, it can get bright, it can get really low, and it can get very dim. So everything around the screen and the speakers is really high quality. Now again, with a little bit with the interpretations here. One big thing, one big con, that is definitely a con, is this light. This light, I'm not sure which brilliant mind in Analogue thought this was a good idea. This is terrible. if you're playing at night, I open that light. Actually, you cannot just open it. This is like a laser. At night, this forms a beam. I'm not even kidding. It was so much brighter than anything else in the room. It felt like I was opening a flashlight. It was really, really bright, and it was very pointy downwards. So it was feeling like it was a light, very, very strong light pointing downwards. And that was terrible. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm just gonna put a tape over it and just never care to look at it. Because if I wanna see the battery values, I can just press the analog button, and on the corner here, it will tell me exactly how much I have. I have like 75%. Can't focus there, sorry. But yeah, I can see the values. I don't have a need for this. So overall, this very bad decision. This little light can be very annoying at night. That was my first annoyance ever with this device. Another thing is the LNR buttons here. You are kind of forced to hold it like this. You cannot really hold it differently outside of touching the card, and that's annoying. I wish they would include a dust cover if you don't want to use cartridges, but from one point, this device is supposed to be about the cartridges. So if you don't use it, like they didn't particularly make it to cater for OpenFPGA. OpenFPGA is just an addition. But again, for me, they should have included dust cover here for whatever reason. What else we can say about this device? As a con, as I said, the laser light, the LNR buttons. Another thing that you may need to consider is the form factor, because if you're changing from Game Boy Advance to this, you're kind of changing to a Game Boy Color. I have seen people saying that this is really big, but it is definitely not, because it is the same size as my iPhone 15, not Pro. But I think it's the XL one. So it's the large iPhone 15. This is the same length. So this definitely fits in my pocket. I don't really have a problem. I'm just gonna get something like a pouch. I have seen it on Amazon. A pouch, something like a pouch, and it can just cover it and it will be fine. Not really any problem with that. Even if I go outside, maybe I will get a hard case if I need to. I'm not sure if I'm going to travel with this. We will see how much I love playing on this. But definitely so far, it feels like this, the way that I will describe it right now, is like a vinyl player for your old records. So you have like all these old records, and this is the best, most high quality way to hear to those records. And this is kind of what it is. And the records here are your cartridges. I can see that if someone is a collector with this, it just overblows it out of proportion. Like you can have so many things that can play here, from your ROMs that you have dumped, from your save files to transfer it over to ROMs, so you can keep your cartridges safe, so you don't have to get them with you. And there's so many things that you can do. So in my opinion, this is the definitive way to play Game Boy Advance games, even though the LNR buttons are not the best, and I am a big Metroid fan. I can take that hit for everything else that this device provides. My hands are big, it's pretty much as the whole device itself. So if you're someone that has big hands and you're wondering about this device, it is definitely comfortable. I don't feel any discomfort in bed or anything like that. It is not really heavy at all. And you can be very precise with your movements, with all the controls. You can have normally the techniques that you have. I like that they have done the difference in the buttons. Is like the top buttons, the X and Y. They are a little bit more, I don't know how to describe it. It's just like your finger can get inside. It's like how you would have like a keycap for your keyboard. That feeling when you're putting it and it's curved. But the other ones are curved from the different way. The A and B buttons, they're like normal Game Boy buttons. So pretty interesting situation here with the buttons. And the D-pad is fine for the most part. As I said on the other video, I had issue if you're playing with something like Contra here. You may get a little bit of an issue when you're moving around the D-pad. On Pokemon and specific other games, I didn't really have an issue. But for this specific one, I had a little bit of an issue. Not a huge problem though, because it felt really good to use this overall. And this wake up and sleep function is just insane. It's like the feeling I had when I couldn't use this function when I was playing on my ROG Ally compared to my Steam Deck. And that's the reason I put Linux on that device, is to be able to have wake up and sleep. This is so good. This is fantastic, and it's so high quality. You can tell from the way that you're holding it, and everything screams quality. So yeah, for me, this is definitely a huge W with this device. I'm so glad I finally got the courage to be like, you know what, I'm gonna get it. Because for years, I was debating over with the high shipping fees and everything like that about the company is not my favorite, but this device, man, I understand. I understand now why there is a craze about these things. And it's not just my first FPGA device. I have had FPGA before. I know everything what they can do. It's really cool that you can play so many games circle accurate in this thing. But I have to say that as a whole device, this really feels amazing. And even though you pay kind of some things like a more premium, definitely worth it, because it is just the device is that good. Anyway, this was the video. Kind of bit went overboard. If you're thinking about it, hope this video helps you for the things overall. And thanks for watching. Hope you have a beautiful day. See you next time.